Okay, so tonight we're just going to go over what a blue team is and just look at several tools that we're going to be using and what exactly we do in competitions such as CCDC. So first of all, just the usual, who is cybersecurity group. So we're a new student org. We're all about hacking, all things hacking, learning, teaching, practice. So we hold workshops, panels, and presentations such as this one. And then we also do fun things such as outside projects and CTFs. So what exactly is a blue team? So in the competitive sense, blue team is just the team competing in an event. But in a more general sense, it's a group of individuals who perform an analysis of like information systems to ensure security. They identify flaws and then verify that different security measures are effective in mitigating these flaws. So, what other teams are there, at least in the CCDC? So I'm going to launch this poll here.
So Bryce asks for clarification, just what is CCDC, since maybe not everyone knows the acronym.
So CCDC is the National Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. I'll be talking more about it later on, but it's basically a competition where we participate as blue teams and try to defend a network. Just waiting on one more person. Okay. So it looks like most people said B, and that is actually the correct answer. So at least in CCDC, the other team that is listed here is a white team. In the real world, there's also a purple team, which is a mixture of red and blue teams. Orange team, I don't think there is such a team. So the other teams in CCDC or other competitions like it, there's the red team and black team and a couple others. So red team is the team that is trying to hack into our blue team's networks. They're trying to disrupt the services and try to gain control and log us out of our own network machines. Black team is basically the team that sets up the virtual environment. They make sure that all the virtual computers are running well, and they reset the computers if we request it. It's also the white and gold teams. So white team is just basically the officials that observe the team performances. They usually grade injects, which we'll cover later on. And the gold team is they're just the officials that manage and run the entire event. So for our region, it's the Western Regional CCDC competition. So these are the main teams that make competitions such as CCDC run. In the real world, it's primarily just red and blue teams with various others. The red and blue teams work together to basically check if a network is secure. So why is a blue team necessary? So first way to defend, they find ways to defend. They change and regroup defense mechanisms to make incident response much stronger. So this basically means that this is the opposite of what the red team does. They're trying to break into our networks and gain control of it. But the blue team is actually inside the network trying to figure out ways to secure it from any form of attack. So they do this by strengthening the entire digital security infrastructure, so hardening different computers, making sure that they log everything both on the computers themselves and within the network, and they make changes to mitigate future attacks. It's an important thing to note that there is no red team without a blue team. So blue teams are really important in the real world, as well as in these different competitions. So what does a blue team do? So among other things, a blue team primarily assesses, patch, hardens, upgrades, defends, and manages usually entire networks, but we usually split up into individual computer systems such as workstations and servers. So for the assessment and management side, a lot of what we do first is try to take an inventory of what is on our network. So we try to see like what computers are on the network, what OSs are running, like what ports are open on them, and then we have to compile a lot of reports. And then a lot of these reports are part of injects, which are business tasks that the competition requests from us. So they'll ask like give report of like what's on your network, what open ports there are, and like what security vulnerabilities there are. So we use a variety of tools. I'll go into that later on, but yeah. I think our next poll is coming up. So pictured on the right is one of the tools we use to gain a quick inventory of our network. So which of these tools is this one? Okay, just wait a few more seconds. Okay, so most of you said C, although there was some B and D. The correct answer actually is C, Nmap. So this is a network scanning tool where you can actually scan a whole network and identify which OS is running on each computer, identify which ports are open, what type of ports they are, and it also tries to identify what type of services are running on each port. The other tools listed here, Necto, that's actually a web application scanner. Fiddler is it's like a debugger or something, and then Maltego is I forgot exactly, but I think it's something to do with information gathering, but not like port scanning. So what else does the blue team do? We also patch, harden, and upgrade individual computer systems. We do this to defend against high vulnerability exploits such as Eternal Blue, Eternal Red, or Blue Keep. Eternal Blue and Blue Keep are some of the big Windows ones where if they're not patched, it's really easy to gain system rights to a computer, which means you have absolute control over an individual computer. And Eternal Red is kind of like the Eternal Blue in the Linux world. I think it's an SMP exploit, but it's also very similar where you gain root privileges on a Linux machine. So one of the first things we try to do is to patch and harden our OSs to defend against these exploits, and we secure the systems and the software themselves. So on the defense side, we actually do both active and passive defense. So part of that passive defense is hardening each system and doing the updates, securing each OS. And then part of the active is actually, can describe it as incident response. So as you can see on the right here, this is the incident response cycle. Usually 4 basic steps: preparation, detection, analysis, containment, eradication, and discovery, and then post-incident activity. So throughout the competition, we'll usually cycle through these 2: detection and then containment and then eradication, and then go to post-incident activity sometimes. But part of this is disaster recovery, where we try to recover from someone who's hacked into our network. And then another fun thing we do if we have the resources and time is actually hunt teaming. which is actively hunting for the red team, seeing like what they're doing, and then trying to lock them out of our systems. So what do we work with usually? You can see to the right, this is a sample overview of the, I think it's the WRCCDC qualifiers network. So we're given a small business network, usually, which consists of different workstations and servers, and then networking devices such as firewalls and routers. So you can see the ones here, we have a couple Windows workstations, a couple Windows servers, and then the rest are Linux servers, and then we have a ViOS firewall, which is actually based off of Linux as well. So these servers have a bunch of different roles, such as file servers, or web servers, or like application or domain controllers. So we have to work with a wide variety of services and OSs, as I'll go into in a bit. So here's just a closer up picture of a different network topology. So you can see that we actually, this one actually breaks the network into different subgroups. So they're on different network ranges. And then you can see all the different operating systems that we have to do. And then this firewall router is based off of pfSense. Yeah. So at the beginning of each competition, we don't have this picture given to us. We actually have to go into one of these machines and then scan to see like what else we have on this network, and then delegate like someone gets to secure this computer or this computer, and then discovery is a big part of the competition. So the different OSs we work with, it's very varied. We work with Windows, Unix, router-specific OSs, as well as Cisco devices sometimes. We work with all versions of Windows, from Windows 2008 all the way up to Windows 10, 2016 Server. For the Unix side, we have a bunch of different distros. These are just some of the ones we've encountered in the past, such as Ubuntu, Debian, CentOS, or FreeBSD. Router specific, it's usually either BIOS or pfSense or a Cisco router. These two are Linux based, but they have, I think BIOS has GUI, I'm not sure, but pfSense has a GUI you can work with to just configure your firewall and router. And then for Cisco, they have their own operating system that uses something called iOS. It's just a terminal where you go in and configure the Cisco devices. Okay, so just another quick poll. Which of these is not the new Linux system? Let me start this. This one should be pretty easy. Okay, yeah, everyone got D. So yeah, FreeBSD is actually not a new Linux. It's a Unix-like distribution. All the rest of these are use the Linux kernel, but we encounter all of these different OSs. Alpine is like a small Linux distribution, usually used for like containers. But yeah. So on the Windows side of things, what are some different things we work with usually? So a lot of our work is in the control panel, where we have to change a bunch of different settings. And then another thing called GPEdit, which is the group policy editor. It's this thing right here. If anyone's ever seen it, this is where you can actually go into the fine-grained details of Windows and change a bunch of security settings, user settings, and then specify like a pretty much every different setting that you can change in Windows will be listed in the group policy editor here. Firewall is a big part. We configure the big firewall that manages our whole network, as well as the individual firewalls for each OS. And then we do use a lot of command prompt for just doing basic tasks and then running scripts if we have them. And on the server side of things, we do use the server manager, which is basically just a command prompt for server versions of Windows. So in this right here is the server manager. You can go in and change settings for different services hosted by the Windows server. On the Linux side of things, it's pretty simple. Everything's a file, so you're going to be working with a terminal the whole time, pretty much. Yeah, sometimes my terminal might look like this if I'm managing like all the Linux machines on our network. This is actually a program called Terminator. It's kind of like Tmux, where you can divide your terminal into different sections, but Terminator also allows you to actually send commands to like 3 of these terminals at once. So if I'm connecting to 3 different machines, I can type like IPA and then get all like the IP address informations at the same time for like all the 3 different machines. So yeah, everything's a file in Linux. So all the security settings, all the user management, everything, we just edit using like command line tools or actually editing the file themselves. On the networking side of things, usually we're provided with a GUI so we can more easily configure our networks. Some of these are PFSets in Palo Alto, so they provide a GUI such as the one on the right, where we can actually go in and configure the different networking settings such as routing or configuring the firewall, which is one of the most important things about defense. If we don't have a GUI, then we have to do all these configurations through the terminal, either in a Linux terminal if the firewall is Linux-based, or in Cisco iOS, which we haven't had to do yet, but I've heard some competitions do use Cisco products. So on the router or firewall side of things, this is, again, as I mentioned, one of the most important tasks, because this is our first defense against the attackers. So we have to define very strict firewall rules, both incoming firewall rules and outgoing. So we restrict traffic coming into our network and going out. And then we have to make sure we log everything so we can see exactly what's happening. And we use something called an IDS, which is an intrusion detection system. And this will actually monitor all the network traffic and compare it against different rules to see if someone's trying to like brute force an SSH, or like we have a rogue service on one of our computers that's trying to send information back to one of the red team members. One example of this is called Snort, and we can actually install these on the networking devices themselves to monitor our whole network. So just on a broader sense for workstations, some of the things we do are just basic hardening, locking down, uninstalling software, making sure that everything is up to date, because that's a big thing about the workstations. They're usually out of date, both in the OSs themselves and the different software that's running on them. And then we have to make sure to really restrict them to what they can access on the network. So workstations, they're usually Windows computers, but sometimes we'll get Linux workstations as well. but there's not that much else to do with them except like restricting and then continuously monitoring them. So on the server side, things get more interesting. We also do hardening updates, but we have to configure each service themselves, such as like a mail server. We have to define the security settings, make sure everything's working properly, and we have to make sure that there's no downtime on these services because we're actually scored on how much time these services are running in competitions. And in the real world as well, we can't have any services going down because that means lost revenue. So yeah, it's very important that there is no downtime. Just a basic overview of some tools that we work with. So there's different IDSs, which are the intrusion detection systems, such as OSEC or Zeek or Snort. So these will actually monitor network traffic or like the logs of the individual computers and see if there's any anomalies or things that are not expected. We also have different SIEM SIMs, which are basically they provide like these pretty graphs about all the logs, both network and about the logs in different computers. And then we have network scanners such as Nessus, or OpenVAS, or Nmap, which will actually scan for vulnerabilities just on the outside. So they'll scan the different ports, see which services are running, and see if these services are vulnerable to any attacks. Okay, another quick poll. Which of these tools is in IDS? I think I already mentioned it. But... Okay, yeah, so all of these tools are actually IDSs. So all of these Zeek, OSEC, and Snort will take in log files from the network or the different computer systems. And then they'll analyze them and see if there's any like brute forcing attempts or different security alerts. And they'll actually alert us as a blue team, or they'll actually perform some actions like OSEC can lock out different IP addresses that it finds brute forcing attempts that it's coming from there. But yeah. Just the different software that we encounter during our competitions. They include the list here: Active Directory, web services such as Apache, or and then file servers such as Samba, FTP. So basically, we encounter pretty much everything that's out there. Some we might not even hear of until the day of the competition. But we have to basically know these services really well in order to like define the best security policy for each service, and with to make sure that everything's running 24/7. So it's a good thing to really go into depth into a few of these. So I'll talk more about like how the team is made up, but yeah, it's best to choose just a few of these and learn these really well. I'm going to go over a few injects, which are the business tasks that we are tasked to do during the competition. So this might be a little small, but You can see here we have initial inventory and security assessment from our CTO. Basically, I pulled out the relevant information. We have to do an inventory, we have to do a security assessment, we have to do a risk assessment, and then provide an executive summary. So to do this, this is how I would approach this particular problem. If we have everyone assigned to their VMs already, I would ask everyone to send their info to see like what's actually running on everything. Also do an nmap scan. Just do a port scan in OS and service detection, just to double check, make sure we're seeing everything. And then I'll use a tool such as Nessus or OpenVAS to actually go through each computer and then see if there's any vulnerabilities that they find. Nessus and OpenVAS will actually provide a report. So that's really nice. We get the report, but then we have to write the executive summary. So that's another thing about CCDC. It's not just about the technical skills. We have to also do things such as this executive summary based off of what we've scanned. There's other examples, but yeah, if you don't want to do the technical stuff, there's other things you can do during CCDC. Here's another example. So basically, our CTO is asking that one of our computers be shut down because of the age of the OS. I think this was a Windows 2008 server. So we have to migrate any tools, utilities, and services to another Windows server as quickly as possible. Important thing to note that he wants to know downtime, and then we have to provide a checklist of how to decommission the old server. So the first thing I would do is I would get all the information about the server. I would open up something like the server management, and then just pull everything that's running off of there. And then I would see like if these services can be run on one of our other VMs or possibly on multiple of our VMs. And then I would try to install those services, get them up running, and then migrate all the data that's over so that we have the old server running, and then the new servers, we're just going to test on the side, just to make sure we can have no downtime. After we test that everything is running, then we're going to configure the firewall settings, just make sure, again, that there's no downtime in between this migration. And then we wait a few minutes to see if the service is being scored correctly on our new servers, and then we'll shut down the server. Make sure to shut down the server, only make sure that the new service is actually being scored correctly, because any downtime is usually a pretty big penalty. Yeah, and then lastly, we'll just build out that checklist, and then let whoever know that we've decommissioned the old server. Just a couple more examples. This task, we're tasked with setting up remote access to our network. This is something that usually you don't want to have. You want to like really restrict your access to the network, but they want access to like all your machines. They want it through a bastion host, which just means like one computer is dedicated as like a dedicated entry point. And then they want the counts of new people to add in Active Directory, which is where all the account information is stored in our network, and then the email systems. And then this remote access will become a new scored service later on. So first, I do the same thing as last time, determine which software to use, which host. So we have a few different options. So Apache, Guacamole. So that's like a web service where we can use RDP or SSH to access different Windows or Linux machines. We can just use VNC software to access all of our machines, or we can use a dedicated Linux desktop or Windows desktop with either an RDP software or SSH software. So after we've determined what software to use, we then have to configure the service, test it, and then after we've tested all of this, configured the security so we make sure that no one else can access this service, and then we configure the firewall. As you saw from the past examples, configuring the firewall is one of the last things we do because the firewall is like the main point of entry into our network. So if we accidentally open something by mistake, then attackers can pretty easily find access to our network. Just one last example. Actually, we have a couple more. This one's just a basic backup. So we have to actually write different scripts in PowerShell or Bash scripting to actually back up each different system. And then we have to provide access to a report of whether these scripts run or not. And then we have to provide access outside the VPN to these access logs. Yeah, so this is the last example. So just imagine that we have a website that we've been that's been scored, and then just suddenly shuts down. It's not a service error. We know that it's been running fine, but we suspect that somehow the red team has gotten into our website and shut it down. So what's the first thing we should do? Wait a couple more seconds. Okay, so we got some varied responses, but mostly C. So that is actually the correct answer. Isolate the computer from the network. So if we have any suspicion that the red team has actually gotten into our network, the first thing we want to do is isolate any computer that's been compromised so that the red team doesn't spread anymore to any of our network. We don't want to try to bring the service back first because it's already the website's already down, so it won't be scored. And looking through the computer logs, we want to do that eventually, but first things first, we want to make sure the red team can't gain any more footholds into our network. So the first thing that you would usually do is isolate the computer, usually from the firewall controller itself of the overall network. Then you'd actually look through the logs, both local and the network, see what happened, see how, like, if the red team, like how the red team got in, or like what time. And then we look for things called indicators of compromise, which mean like access to different file systems that we know that we didn't do, or different exploits being run. And then we remove the threats if we find them, scan the computer, see if anything's still running, like any malicious code is still running, then we bring the service back up. We do all of this still while isolating the computer. We check for vulnerabilities again in the service and the computer. But then only when we're sure that everything is back to normal, then we put the computer back on the network after everything is done, just to ensure that this infected computer doesn't spread to the rest of our network. So how do you become an effective Blue Team member? So a big part of this is becoming familiar with the wide range of software and operating systems that we encounter. So a good way to do this is build your own servers or build your own networks. You can use virtualization tools such as VirtualBox or VMware, where you can actually install different OSs, try them out. You can actually build your own network. So yeah, then another thing is practicing with us. We haven't done that much this quarter, but we have a server where I actually run a virtual network that's based off of one of the past seasons rounds. So actually go in there and then like practice, do a practice simulation of what an actual competition is like. So other things you can do to practice is just looking through different benchmarks, such as the CIS benchmarks or the DoD STIGs. So these are basically documents which go through all the different security settings in different OSs or services, and then it'll give recommended settings to make these services or computers more secure. Another good thing you can do is try red teaming. It's pretty useful to see what the red team is actually doing, see how they're attacking different networks. So another competition I'll mention later is actually focused on red teaming, but you can actually try red teaming yourself just on your own networks, just by installing another virtual machine, such as Kali, and then just trying to break into vulnerable OS. So a good one I would recommend is the Metasploitable project. I'll actually link it in the shared notes. But so this project, you can actually build a vulnerable operating system, and then there's documentation about how you can exploit the different services that are running. But it's also good for defending as well, because you can actually go into the Metasploitable image itself and then try to just secure all the different services. And then finally, you can always compete. So you can join the different teams that we have running. I think competing is one of the best way to improve the skills for blue teaming. So some more specific advice I would give is really choose a focus. So as I mentioned before, there's 3 main different OSs that we work with: Unix, Windows, and networking. So I'd really advise to become familiar with all 3 at a basic level, but actually go into depth on one of these levels, because we usually split up our team into who knows which operating system or who knows which server is best. Networking, yeah, so we really need a networking person, so someone who really knows firewalls, routing well, as well as Cisco. Try to become as familiar as you can with these systems. So maybe try running these as your daily driver on one of your computers, or just using it in a virtual machine as a main computer. But yeah, as a team, we usually divide machines up. So one person will get like a Windows server or all the Windows servers. Then another person will get like the Linux file servers and things like that. So on the competition side, we have a few different competitions that we've been running as the cybersecurity group. The main one is the National Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition, or CCDC. This usually runs in the winter, but we have practice throughout the year. This is the main.
Sorry, RJ. Just
Yeah,
quick question from the chat. Bryce is wondering how many members are on a CCDC team.
yeah. So that's actually the next slide, but it's
Okay, sweet.
eight competition members, but 12 in the team total. Another competition is called the Collegiate Pen Testing Competition. This is a relatively new one. We haven't competed in it yet, but we're looking into competing in the next school year. So this is the red teaming competition where we're actually trying to break into different networks. It's pretty much the opposite of the CCDC. Additionally, we have different CTFs, such as the National Cyber League, NCL, or just different CTFs throughout the year. NCL just finished the spring season this past weekend. I think it was past weekend, yeah. But they have different seasons where you can actually practice different skills, such as it's more general skills such as cryptography or forensics and that sort of things. CTFs, if you join our Discord, we list out the different CTFs that are happening on the weekends. You can also go to a site called CTF Time and see if there's any upcoming CTFs where you can practice different skills. So for CCDC specifically, as I mentioned before, we have teams of up to 12, but for each competition, we can only choose like 8 players to play. There's 2 tiers, tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 is for anyone to compete. This tier actually gets to go to the national if we make it past the regional competition, and then tier 2 is just for the regionals. It's just for freshmen and sophomores. So yeah, we can accommodate up to 24 people on our team officially, but we're always welcome to for anyone who's interested to just practice with us. And then yeah, so the competition itself is about 8 hours, including like a setup time, and then yeah, about 8 hours in total, where we're just doing business tasks. We're trying to defend our network, and then yeah, it can get pretty tiring, but it's pretty fun as well. Yeah, there's both regionals and national level. I think there's 2 regional competitions and then a national competition where we compete against colleges all over the nation. And there's lots of opportunities in CCDC because actually a lot of different security companies go to these events looking out for possible future employees because they know that this competition really provides you with a lot of different skills that are really needed in cybersecurity. So just mention our past season. So UCSD, CCDC, we got number 3 in the top defender at the Western Regionals competition. I think this was pretty good. This was the first season for all of us. We only had 4 people competing that day. This was against colleges like Stanford or different UCs all in the Western region. So I think it was pretty good that we actually got number 3 and didn't have any major breaches into our network. So if you're interested in either CCDC or CPTC for the upcoming school year, or just practicing with us throughout the year, go ahead and go to this link. It's just a short survey where you can just fill out your information, just what experience you've had. Yeah, if you're just interested in general, you don't have to Yeah, just go to this thing and fill it out. Here, I'll put this in the share notes as well. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the brief overview of what a blue team is and some of the things that we do. Some more upcoming events that we have for the cybersecurity group this spring quarter is Movie Night Social upcoming. You can fill out this form here to say like what movie you're interested in. Previously, we said it was tomorrow, but we're looking to push this to either this weekend or some other weekend. We have a couple different CTFs coming up. Houseplant CTF, which is this weekend, and the Patriot CTF, which is also this weekend. So the cybersecurity group, we will send our team to these competitions, so you can either join our Discord and participate with us, or you can just do it on your own. Either way. And then next Wednesday, we have another presentation on hardware hacking. I think Aaron's going to be doing that presentation. And then just for the rest of the school year, we have workshops pretty much every Wednesday this quarter. So just look out for that. If you want to connect with us, we have our Facebook here, cybersecurity group, cyber group UCSD, Discord. Yeah, you gotta find the link. It's actually in this presentation somewhere. It's pretty obvious for this one, but yeah. And then your email, if you have any questions in general, you can just email this. So I can just open it up to any questions, or if anyone wants to learn about something more specific, you can just ask in the public chat. But that's pretty much it for the overview.
All right. Well, thank you very much, RJ. It was a ton of information. Now I know to apply for CCDC because I was a little intimidated by the fact that I've never done a defense-oriented competition before. But that does sound kind of interesting. I'd probably not be very good at it, but I'd be interested in trying. Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, some people, I've never done a... You should be able to download the slides. Oh, no, you can't right now. But we're open to sharing the slide link, right?
Yep.
Or at least for the PDF. I'll grab that real fast. So for competitions, I've never done the blue team style competitions or the red team style. I've only ever done Jeopardy. It's just... CCDC is kind of like this whole big deal where a moderator has to come out to your school, you know what I mean? And like, they bring all this like custom equipment with you and they plug you in and then you're kind of in a room and then the moderator has to basically monitor you for the 8 hours that you're playing. It is, again, looked like a lot of fun. I did stop by the room in which you guys were competing in at the time, but I wasn't able to participate just because of timing. I've also never done Cyber Patriot. I've never done any of the common ones.
Yeah, Cyber Patriot, it's more like the Cyber Patriot National Competition, which is most similar to CCDC, but yeah, CCDC is a lot more business-oriented. Yeah.
Let's see here. Would you be okay with us linking the slides themselves, or would you rather give out a PDF? It's up to you.
Either way.
Okay, it's easier for me to just share the slides, so I will just do link sharing and then copy the link. And then people at UCSD, I'll allow external. There we go. Done.
Yes. So for on-campus CTFs, all all the CTFs in general are online competitions. So for the big ones, we usually meet up in person on campus when, or on Discord or whatever. But we're actually trying to start a project where we'll actually design our own CTF and host that. So if you're interested in doing that, I think there's a link for a forum. I forgot where.
Yeah, imagine being on campus. We'll make it happen. And so yeah, our next cyber event is going to be next week, same place, same time. It's going to be about hardware hacking. It's going to be the same, similar lecture that I gave last quarter. I was going to use the opportunity of having the lecture again to provide hardware for you guys to hack, but unfortunately, I don't really feel like shipping you guys things on USPS and stuff, so you're kind of going to have to just sit back and watch. I don't know. Maybe I'll figure out something. But in addition to that, if you're looking for something to do tomorrow, we are having I know Hack School is doing their intro to Python, and we're also doing the Houseplant CTF this weekend. I don't know if I'll be available for that, because I think I'm going to be ironically writing blogs for the NCL. So another competition will be taking up my time, but I won't actually, not for the reason you'd think. Yes, we have people coming in at 7 because a lot of people have classes till 7. Jessica just came on by. We're just now finishing up. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask away. RJ is definitely the expert to ask about CCDC if you want to know the logistics there. If not, we'll wrap up in about 5 minutes or so. 7:10 will be a good time. We'll kill the stream. We'll leave it open for a little bit longer. If only my professors were as good at relaying information in an hour. Oh yeah, you want to make it a free for all, huh, Ishan? Yeah, honestly, I'll do it.